Maurice Nicole, Psychological Commentary, Volume 2, based on his work with Gurdjieff at Birdlip, December 16, 1944. Commentary on Internal Considering. All internal considering is due to the presence in ourselves of eyes that internally consider. One side of self-observation is to observe these eyes. If you simply try to observe internal considering without trying to observe the eyes in you that love above all things to make accounts, you will not be able to separate from them. As you know, we have in us a very large number of eyes that seek to do the utmost harm, and in fact, to destroy our lives. They seek to destroy our happiness in every way. It takes some time to see that this is so, because for a long time we are not aware of the fact that different eyes are in charge of us at different moments. Owing to the action of buffers, particularly, we seem to be one continuous eye. It is only in the development of inner taste that we begin to feel the taste of different eyes and so become aware of the presence of unpleasant or dangerous eyes acting in us. Tonight, I want to speak to you briefly about curious eyes that belong to internal considering. One set of eyes might be termed eyes that make conscientious scruples about unimportant things. These eyes can be thought of as very small, narrow eyes in the mechanical part of the intellectual center whose whole object is to cause difficulties and confuse us. They are not the same as superstitious eyes that make us walk to the right or to the left, etc. They belong to the parrot group of eyes, of which we have great numbers, like, for example, those that give us obstinate opinions or that keep on telling us that this is no use, and so on. On the contrary, there are eyes that can do harm, a great deal of harm to us. They have nothing to do with real conscience, which never makes us internally consider about anything. These eyes that make conscientious scruples about unimportant things often dominate people, with the result that exhausts them, take a great deal of force from them, and indeed enslave them. They cause a great deal of internal considering with reference to oneself rather than to other people. You can tell that these eyes belong to internal considering because they have the same emotional taste. To be imprisoned by these eyes is very harmful. Now it is useless arguing with them. The first thing that has to be done is to observe them. The next thing is to try to separate from them. You can only do this if you get behind them into better eyes. If you support them through identifying with them, you will neither be able to observe them or separate from them. There is a saying in the work that we should make important things important and unimportant things unimportant. Everything that keeps us awake is important, and everything that puts us to sleep is unimportant in relation to the work. It is a good plan to think what this means, because one then begins to see what one has to work on. There are 1,001 other factors in us that are unimportant that keep us asleep. But these eyes that make conscientious scruples about unimportant things are one of the factors. They may be connected with ritualistic ideas, or they may have their origin elsewhere. But in self-observation, we do not try to analyze, that is, find the causes and origins of difficult eyes in us. But in self-observation, we do not try to analyze, that is, find the causes and origins of different I's in us, but only seek to become conscientious of them. Let us remind ourselves again about the general view of internal considering. On one occasion, Gurdjieff said to Ouspensky in reference to somebody of whom Ouspensky thought well, "Yes, he is very nice, but he is weak because he is always internally considering." What does this mean? What is this internal considering that makes us weak in Gurdjieff's sense? Internal considering in the work is first of all divided into two main aspects, which are really two sides of the same thing. The first aspect is the feeling that one is not properly treated, that one does not receive the proper recognition or is misunderstood. This can pass into a kind of chronic self-pity, into pathetic resignation, and so on. The other aspect is making inner accounts against other people. You must understand that this is not the same thing as making requirements. Making accounts against other people springs from the feeling that one has not gotten one's rights. The psychological result of making accounts against others is the feeling that other people owe us. Other people are in debt to us. This produces a very bad inner taste from which the development of any individuality is impossible. That's why in the Lord's Prayer so much is said about this in such a condensed way. As long as we feel that others owe us, that is, as long as we persistently make inner accounts, we cannot start any change of being or reach any new understanding. The teaching of the work will fall on our ears after year, and nothing will happen. In the first place, if you invariably make and cherish inner accounts, you will always feel that you have a credit balance and that others have a debit balance in regard to yourself. You are a very bad merchant, esoterically speaking. You will get nowhere. All these inner accounts must be canceled. The Lord's Prayer says literally, cancel our debts in proportion as we cancel other people's debts. Now, if you cannot cancel what you believe are other people's debts, you will not have debts canceled for you through the action of the work on you. This means that your whole relation to the work will be wrong. It will be a bad relation. Let me ask you this question. How can we ever begin to realize our own nothingness if we're full of inner accounts, full of the idea that we are owed by everyone and everything? How will you overcome the action of life on you? How will you break your constant identification with the events of life if you think that life owes you? How will you escape from prison if you do not feel free to leave it and wish, first of all, to accept from the gaoler that you feel he owes you and see that everyone is properly punished who has in any way hurt your feelings? Try therefore to see through self-observation over a long time where you are caught and held down by the making of inner accounts. When self-observation becomes a real thing, when you begin to see what you are like and what you have done, then you can stand this development of consciousness without self-justifying. You will begin to see the diminution of your internal accounting. You will feel a release from yourself, and with this release, you will feel a broadening of yourself, a change of the feeling of yourself. You may, in fact, really be able to laugh at yourself. Internal considering of every kind is very difficult to observe. It is only a sense of the work that can make it worthwhile for you to observe it. In life, it does not matter. A great deal of ordinary life conversation consists of internal accounting against others. It is quite impossible to observe yourself if you are just in life and in life values. Life values do not develop this inner taste that the work speaks so much about, the development of which leads eventually to real consciousness in which there is no internal considering. I advise each of you to observe clearly what one single form of internal considering so that you recognize it when it comes around again. Taste means emotional taste. Now, everything in us is connected together by associations. One set of associations is emotional. If you recognize the emotional taste of an I in you, you will be able to recognize other I's having the same emotional taste, not in a day, not in a week, but very gradually. If you begin to hate this emotional taste, you begin to free from the power of those I's which have been sitting in your house, taking charge of you, eating your food and spending your money and spoiling your lives all this time. Indeed, you will wonder what on earth you have been doing all this time and why no one has ever told you before. You will see from what I have said that the first thing that is necessary is to begin to see what you observe is not yourself. I will, in conclusion, quote to you once again Gurdjieff's words about this. To begin self-observation and self-study, it is necessary to divide oneself. A man must realize that he indeed, first of all, consists of two men. So long as a man takes himself as one person, he will never move from where he is. His work on himself starts from the moment he begins to feel at first two men in himself. One is passive, and the most it can do is to register or observe what is happening to it. The other, which calls itself I, is active, speaks of itself in the first person, and is in reality only an invented, unreal person. Let us call this invented person a man A. When a man understands his helplessness in the face of A, his attitude towards himself and towards A in him ceases to be either indifferent or unconcerned. Self-observation becomes observation of A. A man understands that he is not A, that A is nothing but the mask he wears, the part that he unconsciously plays, in which unfortunately he cannot stop playing, a part which rules him and makes him do and say 1,000 stupid things, 1,000 things which he would never do or say himself. If he is sincere with himself, he feels that he is in the power of A and not the same. He feels that he is not A. He begins to be afraid of A. He begins to feel that he is his enemy. No matter what he would like to do, everything is altered and intercepted by A. A is his enemy. A's desires, sympathies, thoughts, opinions are either opposed to his own views, feelings, and moods, or they have nothing in common with them. And at the same time, A is his master. He is the slave. He has no will of his own. He has no means of expressing his desires because whatever he would like to do or say would be done for him by A. On this level of self-observation, a man must understand that his whole aim is to free himself from A. And since he cannot free himself, in fact, from A, because he is himself, he must therefore master A and make him do not what the A of the given moment wants, but what he himself wants to do. From being the master, A must become the servant. The first stage of work on oneself consists of separating oneself from A mentally, and being separated from him in actuality, in fact, in keeping apart from him. But the fact must be born in the mind that the whole attention must be concentrated upon A, for a man is unable to explain what he himself really is, but he can explain A to himself. And with this, he must begin remembering at the same time that he is not A.